Welcome back, fight fans. We're back for one last time in the year, just talking about the last couple cards last week. That would be UFC Vegas 66. Oh, yeah, Unified 48 and Unified 49, which was all on Friday and Saturday. So we'll open up, of course, with UFC Vegas 66. That would have been Cannoneer and Strickland. It's been a while, I forgot. So that opened up. Of course, we'll go with the prelims as always first. Sergey Morozov, Journey Newson. That's what opened up the night. Honestly, pretty solid card from start to finish. Almost every single fight was pretty good. Great way to end the year. So Morozov, Newson. I had Morozov on this one. Morozov right away took the center of the cage early, walking Newson down. Pretty close with the striking early. Then Morozov switched it up with a takedown. Kind of figured that was going to start happening. He's pretty well rounded. Then Newson got out of it, but Morozov landed a quick head kick in there before the round ended. Pretty close opening round. Morozov seemed to be ahead 1-0 though. Then it was second round. Newson definitely more active to start the second. Started to be more accurate, landing some heavier combos. Then about halfway through, Morozov got another takedown and kept that grappling for really the rest of the round. Not really doing a whole lot of damage, but still getting some strikes in there in between all those takedowns. Tough round to score, especially when we've been talking about, of course, damage, and what that does to the scorecards. I gave it to 2018 to 2018 to Morozov at the end of the second there, but pretty close. Could have been tied. Last round, Newson came alive again at the start of the round, walking forward, landing some heavy combos. Obviously, knew that he was tied or down one. It's a pretty close fight. Sadly for him, though, Morozov got another takedown. This time, just completely grabbing control from there. Took his back. Newson did get back up, but Morozov never really stopped from there. Kept that grappling pace going. Got, I think, over four rounds, over 4 minutes of dominant control there. So seemed like a pretty obvious round from Morozov there. So I scored at 30-27. 29-28 was fair, though. And that's exactly what the judges had, actually. It was 30-27. And then two of them had it 29-28 for Morozov there. No surprises there whatsoever. Second one, it was one that we talked about last week. That was Manel Kopp and David Dvorak. I even said, I was like, Manel Kopp should be able to get a finish here. He's just so good on the feet there. And we haven't really seen Dvorak do much. We haven't really seen him do a whole lot. So the grappling I knew was going to be okay. Dvorak's got some grappling. Figured that might have been a slight problem, but that, the stand-up of Kopp was going to get it done, and he was going to get a finish there. That's how I thought. How I saw it going. Started off a lot slower than I thought, though, especially for flyweights. Usually starts off pretty heavy. Nothing really from either side early. Lots of movement for Dvorak, though, not wanting to be a stationary target. As I said, striking of Kopp. Got to watch out for that. You can't stand still and do that, especially with a flyweight. You can't stand still like that. Cap, clearly the aggressor, walking forward, trying to get things going. Did land a couple of strikes, but again, lots of movement. Kind of, it's not even that Cap was having a hard time with it. It's just nobody can really do anything when you're just chasing the whole time. That's just the way it is. Dvorak managed to grab onto Cap and trip him, getting a takedown there. Kopp was doing pretty well from the bottom, actually. A lot better than I thought he was going to do, to be honest. looking for a lot of submissions. Actually got pretty deep on a Kimura there. Then really got in deep on it to the point where I was like, oh, Cap's actually going to get a submission here instead of the knockout that I thought he was going to do. Dvorak almost tapped. It actually looked like I wouldn't really say it looked like he did, but it was very, very close. But was saved by the bell. Very lucky there. Um, and with that late attempt, even though he was on the bottom, on the feet, it was dead even. On the ground, Dvorak never really did anything. So with that attack where he basically almost got the submission win there, I gave the first round to Cop, but I mean, really could have gone either way on that round. I mean, it's so dead even on that in that kind of way. Second round, Cop kept that pressure going, this time landing a lot more, which, again, kind of expected. I mean, Cop is never going to slow down his striking, especially when, the other guy's starting to slow down a little bit. Dvorak starting to throw some heat himself, but Cop eventually started to land the cleaner and harder shots, then actually dropped Dvorak on his back. After getting stood back up, Cop turned it up a new. Turn it up a level. Oh my goodness. Misread my notes there. He turned it up after there, slammed some body shots into him, dropped him another couple of times with some heavy combos. Amazingly, Dvorak actually capitalized on a slight error from there and dragged him to the ground. But I mean, he got dropped down, I think, like 2 or 3 times. The body shots were crazy. The combos, I mean, Cop was all over him. So clear round for Cop. So I had it 2-0. Could have been tied, either way. But that second round, I mean, there's no doubt. Absolutely no doubt the Cap won the second. Third round, Dvorak wasn't giving up. Still very much active and throwing. I mean, these are ranked guys. They're not going to be stopping, even though it was the second fight of the night, which I thought was ridiculous. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, this should have been on the main card. Even, opening the main card somewhere around there. I mean, seriously, I don't know why this was the second fight of the night. It just made no sense in terms of the order there. Dvorak, like I said, wasn't giving up the third round. Cop still a step ahead though, landing clean strikes, wobbling Dvorak a couple of times, and at this point, really, he was just landing so easily that he was actually just throwing in some showmanship there for some added effect. I mean, looked absolutely incredible. Another clear round for Cop at that point. 29-28 or 30-27. I didn't write down what the judges went with, but it was a unanimous decision for Cop. Well earned. And I think really, actually, I'm more impressed with what I saw than actually, I don't know. I was gonna say I was actually more impressed with what he showed than if he would have just gotten an early finish, because we actually saw the full 3 rounds. He doesn't have a problem with pace at all the way through to the third round. I mean, Dvorak was struggling with the pace a little bit. Cop never slowed down, never stopped, even got in, like I said, the showmanship in the third round there, the final round. And then we saw, like I said, the grappling in the first round there. I mean, I didn't expect that kind of thing from him. So to see that, I mean, that's incredible. So I was actually more impressed this way, I think. And that really just goes to show you he is definitely the real deal there. And yeah, he will, I would say, guaranteed be in the top 5 at some point. Maybe not within the next year, maybe not even within the next 2 years, but at some point, you got to think Manel Cop is going to be there. He is so good. I was going to say third round. The third fight, Renat Fakhretdinov and Brian Battle. I mean, the betting line was close on this one. I'm not really entirely sure why, because when you look at the record and then also just watch what they were doing, I mean, Renat should have been a massive favorite, and I mean, we saw that right away. I mean, if you saw this fight, you'd be like, "Wow, that's a mismatch." I mean, really, honestly, there's nothing really to say about this. I don't even need my notes. It was literally, I think it actually ended up being 13 or 14 minutes of control time out of the 15 minutes for Renat. I mean, it's not even that Brian Battle isn't good. He actually, he is good. It's just that the grappling, I mean, it's unreal, really. And that's exactly why I didn't write down what his win streak was, but I think it's something like, is it like 10 or 12 or something? I think it's like a 12 fight win streak or something. I don't know. It's something crazy. And it's like, why was it? I don't think he was the underdog, but it was close. It was like minus 130 or something like that. I can't remember what it was. But yeah, it was like, this is absolute dominance, and I couldn't really see it going any other way, to be honest. I mean, especially when I watched the tape, because I don't normally watch the tape anymore, because I just, you know, eh, I don't know. I know most of these people so well that I just don't need to. And then of course with the records, I just don't need to anymore. But this one I wanted to see because the betting line really threw me off, and I was like, I don't see why this is so close. So I watched it and I was like, yeah, this isn't really close. So if you took advantage of that betting line, good for you. I really should have mentioned that last time, I feel like. But yeah, the scores say everything too. A 30-25, 30-25, and then 30-27. I mean, a 30-22, 30-25s. That just tells you right there. A battle never got anything going whatsoever. I don't really know if I would have scored it a 30-25. I mean, he wasn't doing a crazy amount of damage each time, but yeah, Battle never really got a shot off at any point really at all in the fight. So I guess you could say that's a 10-8 round in those cases. I don't think he necessarily did enough damage to do that, but can I argue with a 30-25? Not really. I mean, it was definitely that one-sided. Fight number 4, Rafa Garcia, Maheshate. Uh, I was going Maheshate on this. I mean, this was not one of the ones that I talked about last time, because I knew this really could have gone either way, especially with Maheshate being pretty unpredictable, I would say. I'm getting some text here. Especially with Maheshate being kind of unpredictable, or just the fighters from China in general. You see them do really, really well, and then it's like, oh, they're so, so good. And then out of nowhere, they'll have this weird performance where you're like, well, what happened here? I mean, you were so good the last time. What happened here? So I don't know I don't know what's going on, but it seems to happen to almost every single fighter that comes from China here. It's bizarre. Like, they just seem so, so good. And then they have this terrible performance in the next one, and it's like, what happened? I thought you were going to be in the ranking soon. And that's kind of what happened here. I was a little surprised. Well, actually, I thought he did better than the scorecards suggested, though. We'll get to the scorecards at the end, but I don't think it was a 30-27 personally, but well, actually, maybe I did. No, actually, no, I wasn't. I was just read the end. Anyway, first round, Maheshate, definitely taller, longer, makes sense. I mean, he's a he's a pretty big guy. Landing, jabs, kicks, shutting down the takedown. So I mean, very much controlling that distance, exactly what you need to do when you're clearly the taller guy, clearly the striker against a shorter grappler. I mean, that's exactly what you need to do. So uh definitely ahead early in that case. Garcia, though, he was countering well most of the times, but definitely struggling with the length. Um, Garcia had a good moment near the end of the round that might have stolen it, but personally, I was leaning with Maheshate on that one in the first round. I don't know. He was doing a lot of damage from the distance, and he was doing that for most of the round. So it just seemed like, it kind of should be Maheshate, but like I said, could have stolen it. So, I wasn't mad with the scorecards either way. I'm not, not yelling robbery here. It was definitely that close. It was dead even. Could have gone either way. I lean towards Maheshate though. Second round, Garcia started off pretty hard, but was met with some heavy strikes and a flying knee. Maheshate, all about those big moves. He was still walking him down, but Maheshate busted open his ear with Garcia spouting all over the place, lots of blood, covering both guys completely in red. It was insane. It might have actually been the most blood I've seen in a fight all year. It was insane. Um, Actually, crazy fact that I'll say at the end about how much blood he actually did lose. Garcia didn't let that bother him, though, grabbing a couple of beautiful takedowns. I mean, craziness. I mean, not even just based on the strength. I mean, you're losing strength because you're bleeding that much, but also the fact that it was that slippery and he still managed to get those takedowns. Pretty amazing. Garcia was leaking pretty bad. Canvas covered in blood everywhere. I mean, by the end of the night, it was literally like all over the canvas. I saw at least like 8 or 9 different separate piles of blood just because of this one fight. Insane. Um, but Garcia was still controlling though. Garcia, he ended up grabbing another takedown, took Maheshate's back, landed a huge flurry of ground and pound, lots of ground and pound there. Garcia was still the one bleeding all over the place though, but I kind of actually gave him the round. I mean, it's crazy to say when you look at it, it's like, well, clearly the other guy is winning, but honestly, no, it really wasn't. I mean, it was coming from his ear too, so it wasn't affecting his vision or anything, or there wasn't anything weird going on. I mean, I would assume he felt a little bit weaker, I would think, because that's a lot of blood loss, but yeah, seemed like he won the round. Yeah, which is weird because again, it's like we talk about damage all the time, and it's like this guy's losing so much blood, yet he won the round. You know, I don't know. I don't know. It's a question that you kind of need to think about. Why are we giving the other person the round when the other guy's bleeding all over the place when we're talking about damage? What is damage at that point? I don't know. You got to think about that. Third round, flying knee to the face, but did grab a takedown out of it. Garcia did. Sadly, did start to bleed again. Makes sense. I mean, it was a pretty bad cut, so no surprise there. At this point, Maheshate really couldn't seem to be getting any kind of offense going, which again is strange considering, and especially on the other side of it, you see your opponent bleeding all over the place. You got to think, oh, I'm pretty close to getting this fight done. I mean, that's a lot of blood. I don't know. Again, strange. Garcia kept the grappling going, though, overwhelming Maheshate along the fence, multiple takedowns, controlled him pretty easily. I mean, it was a pretty obvious Garcia round just because Maheshate pretty much did nothing, really. But I mean, really, the other 2 rounds were that close where it could have gone either way, which is why I was surprised by the end that all 3 of the judges had it 30-27. I don't know. I was I was a little surprised by that. I don't know if I would have said, okay, I expected a split decision here, but I definitely expected to see at least 1 or 2 29-28s. I don't know. I mean, we've been talking about the judging for literally over, well, since I started this. So, like a year and a half ago, we've been talking about this. We talked about it a lot. And yeah, still not getting any better. Because really, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially when there's that much blood involved and it's all coming from one guy. By the way, the fun fact is it was revealed he actually lost 20% of his blood. 20%. He lost 20% of his blood. Is that not damage? Is it, Is that not damage? 20% of his blood. And we're not, he didn't win a single round, It's like, you know, how are we scoring things when that's the case? You know, I mean, I can't argue the scorecards because I had it pretty much the same. I had it 29-28 for Garcia, but you know, I did say the first two rounds were so close, could have gone either way. So really, you know, 30-27, you know, it's not insane. I just thought that there would have been one or two that would have been 29-28. But that being said, isn't that kind of an insane score system if somebody lost 20% of their blood and nobody seems to question the fact that it was a 30-27 for the guy that lost all the blood? Like, what happened to the other guy? What happened to the other guy? That the guy who lost 20% of his blood got a 30-27. You know, like he should be dead on the ground if he 30-27'd him. I mean, like it's just a crazy system. It just doesn't make any sense anymore. When you think of it from that point of view, it's crazy. Next fight was one that I talked about last time, and that was, oh, what a crazy one this was. The two Saids, Said Nurmagomedov and Said Yakub Kakramanov. I knew this was going to be mostly grappling. I really didn't expect it to be so heavily in favor of Kakramanov. And maybe I should have. I think this is one of those cases where I probably should have watched the tape again because I did remember, like, okay, this is not Khabib's cousin. So I knew that part. But I didn't remember that, okay, this is the Nurmagomedov with all the kicks. It's not. I thought Umar was the one with the kicks. It's actually Said was the one with the kicks. Actually, it might be both of them. But yeah, definitely more of a striker, which again I knew, but I thought, okay, he's definitely still got the grappling base in him. Not so much. That is not at all what we saw here, because it was quite the comeback. The comeback was real because Kakramanov, I mean, dominated pretty much every single second of this fight. Right from the start, just ran right in and pinned Said along the fence, which again, I mean, not really a surprise. And I did say that this was going to be heavily grappling based. But yeah, I didn't think. Well, I knew Kakramanov was going to be pushing it too because that's what he's known for. But I didn't think it was going to be that easy for him. That's for sure. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, he did get stuck in a pretty nasty guillotine right away. So I mean, really, right away, I was like, "Uh oh." For Kakramanov, I should say, I was like, "Uh oh, he's gonna." That might have been a mistake because he might get submitted right away now. But he did get out of it. Stayed on top of Said, and eventually he did get back up, but landed some pretty slick moves. But I mean, you know, Kakramanov with all that grappling going completely nullified the offense later in the round for Said. So pretty clear round for Kakramanov. I mean, the grappling was just outrageous. It was insane. Second round, he kept that going. Said Yakub kept blah, blah, blah. There's so the names are so long. Kakramanov kept that pace going, took Nurmagomedov down with the grappling. From there, lots of scrambling. Like I said, the grappling exchanges were crazy. Kakramanov did eventually get to the dominant position on Said's back, landing some heavy ground and pound. And I was like, well, now I see why Kakramanov was the slight favorite in this. Yeah. Actually, I think it was maybe just dead even. I can't remember. It was pretty close though. I know that. It was within like 20 or 30 points. But yeah, it was looking pretty rough for Nurmagomedov there. And Kakramanov kept that going. I thought he was going to get a finish for sure. I was like, well, this is done. Like like Nurmagomedov, clearly not as good as I thought he was going to be. I knew how good Kakramanov was, but I thought Said for sure was a lot better than this. And yeah, was not looking good. But then it all changed. He got that guillotine back in just like he did the first round. And this time, he kept it locked in. Lots of moving, scrambling around the mat, but he kept it locked in. And eventually Kakramanov just had to tap, couldn't get out of it. That was it. So he lost pretty much every single second of the fight. up until then. And then that was it. And he got it back. I mean, wow. Like, what a way to come back and win. Second round submission for Saeed Nurmagomedov. I mean, that was my submission of the night. I think it actually ended up being the only submission, but I mean, to really, that was pretty much going to be submission of the night no matter what. Because I mean, like I said, he was getting dominated pretty much every single second of the fight. Turned it around in the last, yeah, it turned it around and then won in the second round out of nowhere with that. I, absolutely insane. I mean, clearly got a lot to work on, and I'm sure that's going to be the main focus for him going forward. Would be, yeah, we need to fix this grappling because he manhandled you for 8 minutes straight. I think that's how long the fight lasted, but however long the fight was, yeah, not close, not close until then. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely be a little more careful picking him in the future. But there's also not really a whole lot of like actually no, no, never mind. I can't even say that. I was gonna say there aren't really a whole lot of other grapplers like that in the division, but honestly, no, there are. And I can't remember if this is flyweight or bantamweight, but honestly, it doesn't really matter which one it is because both divisions have ridiculous grapplers. So yeah, I mean, bantamweight would definitely be easier for him, but uh, yeah, I just can't remember what division they're in. I think it's bantamweight though. Anyway, the sixth fight, Samuelsberger, Jake Matthews. I, I'm not gonna lie, this one surprised me a lot. I was shocked that this played out the way it did, and I mean, there is a reason why Jake Matthews was like a minus 200 something favorite. Um, yeah, it was just bizarre. And I mean, I guess he is kind of just one of those guys where, and I actually said that going into this too. He's one of these guys where you can't tell how he's going to perform. He's not a consistent performer. So sometimes he's going to look like the best boxer you've ever seen. Because what I saw against Fialho, I mean, the striking on display there, seriously, that's some of the best striking I've ever seen. Anybody, like anybody, that was like, whoa. I mean, like, it's just, I can't even believe, I can't even put into words how crazy the striking was that I saw from Jake Matthews against Fialho. And then when you compare that to this, it was like, it doesn't even look like the same person anymore. Like, it really doesn't. And I even wrote that, I think I even wrote that down here. It doesn't even look like the same person in here. Um, yeah, so it was weird. But anyway, we'll get into it. Semmelsberger pressuring early, walking forward. Neither guy really doing a whole lot early, though. Um, I'm sure there would have been a lot of booing had it been anywhere else. Then, out of nowhere, Semmelsberger dropped Matthews with an absolute nuke. Looked like Matthews was done right there, actually. I mean, seriously, I was like, oh, well, that's it right there. But he did fight back, get back to his feet. Matt dragged him down from there, though, taking the dominant position and then raining down ground and pound. Yeah, clear round for Semmelsberger. No other way to score that. I mean, he dropped him and then just lit him up for the entire rest of the round. So, like I said, I thought he was going to get a finish. Clear warrior, though, from Matthews. I mean, he's definitely not going to give up, even though he wasn't performing like he did against Fialho. Still pretty incredible to come back like that, to even survive that round, I should say. Second round, Semmelsberger opened with another nice takedown. Didn't really get a whole lot going with it. Back on his feet, Matthews kind of getting things back together, avoiding the power shots of Matt, landing jabs from a distance. This time, every time Matt rushed in, Matthews would land a pretty good combo. So he was definitely getting back into the fight. But then the second round in a row, Semmelsberger landed a bomb, dropped Matthews on his back, and, clear knockdown. You got to give the round to him because he obviously did more damage getting the knockdown. So Semmelsberger up 2-0. I think that, again, pretty clear. Third round, And this time, less than 20 seconds into the round, he dropped him again. Third knockdown in the same fight for Semmelsberger. And like I said, I mean, just seeing the difference between these two fights, I should say. I mean, it's insane. It's truly like this is not the same person. That's what I kept thinking. I was like, this just does not look like the same fighter. It's crazy the difference because honestly, I mean, if you put Fialio in there against Semmelsberger, I think Fialio wins fairly easily. So the fact that Jake Matthews knocked out Fialio and then just absolutely got manhandled, like just destroyed by Semmelsberger, it's like, I mean, that just really shows you what the sport is like, honestly. But yeah, it's just so bizarre to see that because, again, Matthews probably had some like the best striking I've ever seen against Fialio, and then follows it up with this. It's just so bizarre to see that happen. But yeah, where was I in the third round? Oh yeah, he dropped him again. Matthews actually did take advantage of being dropped this time. Reverse Semmelsberger pushed him into the fence. Somehow Matthews still did look fresh though. I don't know how he was doing it, but third round knocked down 3 times and he still looked good. Matthews making his way back into the fight, walking Semmelsberger down. I mean, obviously he knew he was down, so he was pushing it really hard for a finish. Obviously did not get the finish, but I mean, it's crazy that he was still doing this. Like I said, 3 knockdowns. Usually you get knocked down once, maybe twice, and the fight's over for sure. 3 times and he was still fighting back. I mean, what an absolute warrior. Crazy fight. This likely solidified. Oh yeah, and then Matthews landed a tricky takedown to close the round. So I actually did give him the third round. So I said it was 29-28, but I mean, when I actually think about it a little bit more, I mean, 30-27 isn't crazy because he did get a knockdown at the start of the round. So, you could definitely give the round to him. But like I said, because it was that early and then Matthews actually came back and just kept going the whole round and took the round from there. I gave it a 29-28 for Semmelsberger, but a 30-27 did make a lot of sense upon reflection, let's say. And that's exactly what the judges had. They had it 30-27, 29-28, and 29-28 for Semmelsberger, of course. So pretty clear result on there, but very surprising. Yeah, he's just one of those guys where you just don't know what you're going to get. He could look like the best in the world on one night, and then you kind of wonder what he's even doing there on a different night. I don't know. Like I said, it was just a bizarre juxtaposition, I guess, when you watch the 2 fights like that. Then we had the final prelim of 2022. You gotta love these 2. Corey McKenna, Cheyenne Vlismas. I do really like both of them, especially Corey McKenna, though. She's so nice. She's actually a really talented artist, too, but super nice, really funny. Yeah, definitely huge fan of Corey McKenna. Sadly, I did go the other way on my pick, but I was about 50-50, I will admit. The only reason I went the other way is because I knew how good Vlismas was on the feet, and because of the height, I figured it was going to be harder to take her down. So the distance, I was going with Vlismas on this, but I wasn't completely shocked by the result. That's for sure. Yeah. McKenna looked pretty slick early, honestly, overcoming her short reach. I mean, I don't know how she does this. Seriously, shortest reach in the UFC. I think it's like 59 inches. Like 59 inches on me, that's got to be like up to here. Like that's crazy. That's a ridiculous. It's just a silly reach. When somebody says they have less than 60 inches of reach, that's cute. No, it is funny to say that, it's funny to see though, the numbers on there. Anyway, So, but she does so well with it. It's so crazy to see. That's the thing, is it's like, you see the number and it's like, that's not going to be good. But then she gets in there and she was actually hitting Vlismas quite a bit. She was getting in there really close, getting the combos off, getting out, doing really well. I mean, it was actually pretty impressive. And she was actually the one, I mean, being the grappler, it made sense. Being the grappler, it made sense that she was the one pushing forward. But still, with the height difference and the reach difference, it's really impressive to see, really. Vlismas started to find her rhythm about halfway through the round, stumbled McKenna with a pretty slick combo. Again, when you're pressuring forward and you're the shorter fighter, it's going to happen eventually where you get, you are going to get clipped quite a bit. That's for sure. But McKenna overcame that as soon as she got hit, went to the grappling. I think, maybe she probably could have done that earlier, but turned to it after that and then took her down to the canvas. Pretty tough to score. Pretty tough to score that round, really. I gave it to McKenna, but I mean, it was pretty close because, I mean, she did get the takedowns. She was landing pretty well on the feet, did get stumbled, like I said, but, takedown, good combos. I gave her the round. It was pretty close, though. Second round, Vlismas really started to get going, landing some heavy combos to open the round. Once again, though, McKenna went to the grappling, as she should in that case, pinned her into the fence, winning in the grappling. But Vlismas was doing some pretty good clinch striking in there. So it was getting pretty interesting for sure. McKenna kept that grappling pressure going for the rest of the round, controlled her along the fence. Didn't really do a lot of damage, but it was pretty dominant in terms of the grappling, though. Like, it was pretty much the entire round with her in control. So I, I gave her the round, but again, people have their opinions on damage and all that. But I think in this case, you kind of have to give it to McKenna. Third round, McKenna wasted no time with the takedown this time. She was stuck in a guillotine for a bit, but quickly got out of it and took the dominant spot on top of Vlismas. At one point, Vlismas was pretty close to threatening a submission from the bottom, but McKenna never really let it get too risky there. And with all that control and then a lot more ground and pound this time, pretty clear round for McKenna in that case. I'd have given her the 30-27, but I even said I would not have been surprised with a 29-28. Really, either of the first two rounds could have gone either way, especially the first round. It was definitely a little bit closer. And that's what we saw. We saw 29-28 from all three judges. Yeah. Yeah. Nothing really else to say about that one. I mean, pretty clear for McKenna there. And again, amazing person, amazing fighter. Could not be happier for that kind of win, even though I did not pick her, and I am sorry for that. Main card. Mikhail Oleksiejczuk and Cody Brundage. I knew this was going to be a finish. Wasn't really sure which way it was going to go. That being said, my pick was Mikhail Oleksiejczuk because of what he's been doing to the caliber of the people he's been doing it to. I mean, it was definitely close on paper, but especially when I watched it back, I was like, I'm kind of going more towards Oleksiejczuk here. And, that's exactly what happened. Mikhail looked pretty good on the feet. Brundage negated all that with a pretty heavy takedown. That's what he was going for. He just wanted to grapple because, he knew that was going to be his path to victory here. Probably a grappling decision. That was probably his idea going into this, or maybe ground and pound finish, grappling at Brundage just seemed like way too much for Oleksiejczuk. It really, was not looking great. But then Oleksiejczuk, I should say, I typed down Oleg just for short. Then he flipped the script, reverse Brundage, landed some ground and pound. I mean, I was actually a little surprised by how well he actually reversed him. It was pretty impressive. used that position, took his time, picked his shots with the ground and pound, and I mean, put him out cold with the ground and pound. The shots that he ended up landing were crazy, and it just goes to show you don't need to just like throw. You don't need to do that. What he did is he was looking, waited for the opening, bam, and he went like bam, straight through the guard, bounced his head off the canvas, out cold. It was crazy. Yeah. I mean, that kind of ground and pound, very, very impressive to see. And that was another first round KO for him. Amazing. And like I said, again, figured there was going to be a finish. Could have gone in either direction, but I was going towards Mikhail, and that he did end up getting it there. Then we had the fight of the night. Drew Dober, Bobby Green. Green opened up with some crisp strikes with Dober, then responding with a heavy takedown. I mean, Green always slick on the feet. And I did say this going into this. I knew it was going to be close, but I said Dober has better grappling. So I figured that was going to help him a little bit. Plus, of course, we all know his chin and how strong he is. So, that obviously was going to come into play too. I mentioned that as well. But the grappling I knew is like, okay, if as soon as Green lands anything, he's going to start grappling and he's probably going to edge ahead a little bit there. Green did actually manage to reverse him, though, a little bit surprising. Went back to his feet. Green was using his speed and accuracy early, picked Dober apart with his combos. Halfway through the round, and Dober's nose was already busted. It was looking a bit rough for him. But as the round went on, Dober started to land some heavier ones, making Green slow down a bit. And that's what started to help him a lot, because really it was all the speed. And Dober actually mentioned that. I think he mentioned that after. You just need to slow him down, because obviously Green is going to be the faster guy. Just slow him down a bit, and then you have every advantage at that point, because you're the same speed, but you're more powerful, you're bigger, you're better grappling. It makes sense. Anyway, what was I going to say? Clear round for Green, though. I mean, the damage, the output. He actually doubled the output of Dober on the feet, and he busted him open. So pretty clear round for Green there. Second round started absolutely insane. They just started throwing at each other, just throwing caution to the wind, really. Landing some big combos. Dober landed some bombs this time, even landing a crazy spinning back fist. I love a beautiful spinning back fist. When you see a really nice spinning back fist land, it's crazy. There's almost nothing else like it. I mean, there's some pretty cool strikes out there. Flying knee is always amazing, but there's something about a spinning attack, especially a spinning back fist, that's like, man, when one of those lands clean, beautiful. Dober then started to steal the momentum, walking Green down, landing shot after shot, and then it was all over. Dober smoked him, put him to sleep with a crazy, crazy KO. Absolutely amazing. As always, Drew Dober, incredible, incredible performance. Always electrifying to watch. And even if he loses, which doesn't happen, I mean, it hasn't happened since, the Islam one. But even when he has something like that, it's always amazing to watch him, because he's always so entertaining. Actually, reminds me a lot of Michael Chandler. He really does. In a lot of ways, actually, because even outside of the cage, the way he talks, it's really nice. I really like to listen to him too. I even saw the interview, because now, and I've mentioned this already, I started watching the MMA Hour every episode, and I saw the one this week with him talking, with Ariel talking to Drew Dober. Yeah, what a guy. What a guy. And he actually plays video games as well. I do, of course. I mean, I have my YouTube that I used to stream video games on. He actually plays some of them. He was playing Dragon Age. I stream Dragon Age. Of course, I was doing the original one. He was doing the newer one. What a cool guy. You would not expect that from a guy like that. But yeah, super cool. Super nice guy. Extremely talented. Amazing. Just amazing. And then what a crazy performance. Crazy fight. Yeah. Then another crazy one, more so the result than anything else. Alex Caceres, Julian Erosa. I thought Erosa was going to have the edge going into this. I figured it was going to be pretty close. Did not expect what was going to happen, though, at all. Even when I was watching the fight, I was like, still going Erosa. But Caceres did look pretty good, though. Yeah. Anyway, Caceres looked smooth early, especially with his kicks. Always has great kicks. Started to really walk Erosa down, landing some pretty clean combos. And then, then it was it. That was it. Caceres landed a massive head kick, flattened him immediately, got a couple ground and pound shots in, and that was it. Personally, I think it may have been an early stoppage. Well, actually, no. Let me rephrase that. When I first saw it, I was like, that's a bit of an early stoppage. But then about 5 seconds after that, Erosa tried to stand up and he couldn't and fell all over the place. And I was like, oh no, that's a fair stoppage. But it was so weird because it was like the kick didn't really look like it. I mean, it looked like it landed fully, but it didn't look like it had a lot of power. But I mean, the reaction from it was like, oh, wow. I clearly, absolutely destroyed with that kick. So I don't know how he managed to get that much power out of doing that because it didn't look like it landed with much power. But I mean, he couldn't even stand up after. That's how clean and how heavy that kick was. He couldn't even stand up properly. So I mean, I took back the early stoppage thing right away. As soon as I saw that, I was like, whoa, okay. Wow. So yeah, did not expect that at all. Again, super nice guy. I also saw that interview. I actually watched that one this morning with Alex Caceres on the MMA Hour. Very interesting guy, and we have a lot of similar opinions. That was really interesting to hear. I'm definitely a bigger fan of Alex Caceres after that. Not even just because of the performance, but yeah, talking to Ariel like that, I was like, I actually think a lot of these exact same things, and nobody else seems to see it either. So I felt a lot of that. I really understood exactly what he was saying because I was like, huh, yeah, I have a lot of these exact same opinions, and nobody else seems to say these things either. So it was interesting to see somebody else say exactly what I was thinking because that never really happens. So yeah, pretty cool guy, pretty interesting guy, and amazing performance. Not much else to say. I mean, it was a pretty short fight. After that, Amir Albazi, Alessandro Costa. And I figure, I figured this was gonna go one of two ways. Either Albazi was gonna just smoke him right away, like I said he was probably going to last week, or the other alternative was that it was going to be a lot closer than I thought, and that Albazi was still going to win. I mean, I knew he was going to win either way. There was never a question of is Albazi going to win or lose. No, I knew he was going to win the whole time. But was it going to be close or was it going to be completely one-sided? And it seemed on paper like it definitely should have been more one-sided. But I knew because it was flyweight too. These fights can go either way because everybody's so good at flyweight. So I figured he actually really does have a chance at making this a longer fight. But like I said, on paper, it just seems so heavily favored, slanted towards Albazi. I figured he was going to get a finish like that, but yeah, it kind of went the opposite way. Yeah, it just actually kind of went the opposite way, where it's like, oh, this actually was pretty close. Well, closer than, closer than I said it was going to be. Let's just say that. But yeah, not completely unexpected because I knew there had to be a reason why this matchup was even made in the first place, because on paper it just seemed a little bit ridiculous. Anyway, bit of a slower start than expected. That was actually a little more surprising than anything else, is that it started so slow. Again, flyweights, they always start so crazy hard that it's just like you never really expect it when you see it start so slow from two flyweights. Anyway, Albazi definitely controlling the action though, landing some pretty good shots from a distance, After a couple minutes, Albazi started to get close enough to actually clinch up. Didn't actually get a takedown out of it, but he was pretty close. Struggled a little bit with the size of Costa. I was a little bit surprised by that. Because I don't think I fully realized how big Costa was going to be, because in the other fight on the Contender Series, when I was watching Costa, he didn't really look that big. So I wasn't really thinking about that part of it too much. But when you saw these two guys, Albazi and him, I was like, oh, okay. I don't know if Costa just got a lot bigger since the last fight, or if Albazi is a little smaller than the other guy he was fighting. I'm not really sure how that worked out, but I was a little bit surprised with that. Then closing out the first round, some more close striking to close the round. Definitely tight on the scorecards. I did give it to Albazi though, only because, you know, at that point when the damage is the same, you go down to the next criteria, which is then kind of pace, pressure, activity. He was more active. He was throwing out more shots. He was using more output, and he was pushing the pace. He was walking forward. He was kind of doing, getting the activity started, and then Costa was kind of catching up. So for me, it's like you know, just slightly lean towards the guy that's pushing the action a little bit more when everything else is kind of the same. So I had it 1-0 at after one for Albazi. Second round. That's when Albazi had the first big moment of the fight, knocked Costa down on his back. From there, Albazi was in control. Again, obviously very much the grappler, so he was happy. Started to get the submission game going, landing some good ground and pound. And Albazi landed some even heavier ground and pound to close the round. Obvious round for Albazi. There was no question about that. Third round, the striking started crazy right away, but sadly for Costa, Albazi lunged in, landed a takedown, so shut that all down. They did go back to their feet, but then out of nowhere, Albazi landed a crazy uppercut, knocked Costa flat on his back, followed up with a couple of final shots, and ended up getting the TKO win in the third round. I gotta say, did not expect to see a TKO from Albazi, especially in this scenario, but it really just shows you how well-rounded he really is. I mean, he is really just that good. And in the third round, too, a third round TKO is probably one of the most rare finishes you can get. Because, first round, okay, pretty common. Second round, usually submissions, still fairly common. Third round, though, you don't normally see that, because usually the strength and the cardio is pretty much gone out the window. So you don't normally see stuff like that. So for him to get the finish in the third round like that, pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. Co-main. Oh, and this was the one that I was most excited about, besides, of course, Green and Dober. I knew this one was going to be really good. I mean, elite guys. You figure both of these guys are going to be in the top 5 at some point. I mean, I think Sarukian basically already is in the top 5. Let's be honest. I mean, he's pretty unbelievably good. And he was going against somebody on a 19-fight win streak, which is absurd. Yeah, especially when you're fighting the caliber of people that you're fighting, because it's not like he's fighting cans. He was fighting pretty solid people the whole time, really. But yeah, both of them looked pretty good early, jumping in and out, getting some quick strikes in. Sarukian, first one to make the first kind of bigger move, going with the takedown. Ismagulov got up, really fighting to stay on his feet. I mean, he was trying, but yeah, getting thrown around quite a bit by Armin, just ragdolled around the canvas like that. It basically looked like he was grappling me at that point, because it was like he was just throwing him around so easily. It was like, oh wow. Well, I mean, he was still staying up. It's not like he was getting dominated like I would get destroyed, obviously. But, it's like a regular fighter grappling against me. That's kind of what it looked like. Just getting thrown around, which exactly shows you how good Armin really is, because Ismagulov is pretty incredible. So for Armin to be able to do this, because Gamrot couldn't even do this to Ismagulov, and he is a very good grappler. Actually, no, actually, no, I think I'm messing up. Did Gamrot fight Ismagulov? I can't remember. But some grappler did face Ismagulov, and he couldn't do this at all. I can't remember who it was now. Anyway, moving on. Ismagulov did find himself on top for a bit, which was pretty surprising. But Armin swept him and swept him back, got back up, and then pushed him into the fence again. Armin then closed the round with a couple of heavy strikes, and then, I mean, with the grappling, all the throwing him around, couple of extra strikes, I had to give him the first round. I had to give Sarukian the first round there. Second round, really started to push that pace. And I mean, we knew that he was good at pushing the pace because he did that in a 5-round fight. He was pushing the pace the whole time, which he ended up paying for because he couldn't do that in the 4th and 5th. But the first 3 rounds, he was going intense the whole time in a 5-round fight. So we know he's got this in him for sure. Demir was obviously standing up well, though, countering pretty well, because I mean, he is the striker. So Armin, we knew Armin wasn't necessarily going to get a whole lot done on the feet here. That's not how this fight was going to be won. That's for sure. Armin then switched gears again, dragging Demir down, taking his back. So definitely more dominant in the grappling this round. Demir did get up quick, but just like the first round, Armin was just really throwing him around. I mean, there's no other way to say it. He was just throwing him around the canvas, doing really well. And then took his back a second time. Demir was in trouble this time. Got stuck in just a lot of different submissions from Sarukian, being that good on the ground. I mean, he's just so good on the ground. Eventually, Demir managed to slip out of it, stand back up, fighting hard. Like I said, he never gave up. He never gave up the position. He was really fighting hard to stand back up, constantly, which again is weirdly uncommon because normally, and I mean, people don't necessarily notice it all that much, but I mean, I notice it because the commentators pointed out sometimes, and it's like, oh, you're right. What you see a lot of is when when they've been kind of out grappled that much, they just kind of give up, and then they give up the position every single time. And then it actually just ends up being easier for the other person. Or sometimes what even happens is it's like halfway through a takedown, it's like, oh, I'm getting taken down. I'll just go with it and then, work my way back up. But that's not what you should be doing. And that's not what he was doing. That's not what Demir was doing for sure. I mean, every second of this fight, he was like, get me up. I'm getting back up. I'm standing. I'm keeping myself up. Never wanted to stay on the ground. So that is the sign of, and again, this is exactly why you can tell, I should say, easily top 10, eventually, I'm sure a top 5 guy in Ismagulov, because really never stopped giving up. Never stopped fighting, never gave up. And of course, that's also why he's on a 19 fight winning streak. Let's not forget that part of it either. But Armin never stopped. I mean, I even wrote down here, his arms were literally almost always just constantly wrapped around the legs, the waist, or the chest of Demir. Always had a hand on him, always was wrapped around him, never gave Demir any kind of chance whatsoever to fight back and get back into the fight. So yeah, I had to give that round pretty easily to Sarukian as well. Third round, I mean, again, there's not really much to say. The exact same thing happened the third round. Armin just dominated him with the grappling. So actually, one thing I should say too is that Armin did actually lock in a pretty nice submission at one point, and Demir actually looked like he was going to tap at one point because it was very close. It was really tight in there. But he did survive and ended up getting, of course, Sarukian got the 30-27, well earned. And again, that really just tells you how good Sarukian is. And people, some people are going to take that the wrong way, the result the wrong way. It's like, people are going to say, oh, Ismagulov never really fought anybody that good. Like, oh, 19 fight win streak, whatever. It's over people that aren't that good. Like, no, Ismagulov is still very, very, very good. It's just Sarukian is just that good. He really is just that good. And I mean, like I said, to me, and actually him too, he doesn't think he lost to Gamrot either. So he considers himself on, what did he say, like a 5 or 6 fight win streak? Honestly, I see that too. I didn't really think he lost that Gamrot fight either. I mean, really, the only thing that happened, like I said, is he started to slow down in the 4th and the 5th round. So yes, I think he did lose those last 2, but he didn't. I don't think he lost the first 3. I think that was a bit silly to say. At least I think that's how the scoring worked out. I did have it 3 rounds to 2. That's all I remember. But it was because he started to slow down because he pushed himself too hard too early. But either way, he still, to me, won the fight. Anyway. So, I mean, again, that really just tells you how good he actually is, because I don't know who would be able to stand up to that kind of grappling onslaught. I really don't, because the top 5, they're all strikers uh, except for Islam, of course. And I think that would be the most interesting matchup. I actually even said that before. I think the only person who's going to really make it super interesting is actually Sarukian, because he made it interesting the first time he fought Islam. Like I said, he actually almost won that fight. I mean, he was shutting down the grappling of Islam. That's how good he is. So it's like, I mean, I don't think anybody else is going to come close to doing that with the grappling. I don't think that at all. So really, it's just going to be striking. Who's the best striker at that point? I think Sarukian will easily last 3, 4, if not all 5 rounds with Islam. I really do, because he's just that good. Like, he's just that good at the grappling part of it, where I don't think Islam can do the same things that he's been doing to the other people. It's just not. I just don't think he can do that, because he didn't. He couldn't the first time. So I don't think anything's really changed in that regard. So yeah. Anyway, that's how good he is. It has nothing to do with how, Ismagulov being bad. Ismagulov also deserves to be clearly in the top 10. So yeah, don't take the wrong message from that result. That's for sure. The main event. This was another one where I had my notes on my phone here. I got distracted by a couple texts there. This is another one again. For some reason, my AirDrop is not working. I don't know why it's why it's not happening. My Bluetooth is on. Everything's set up properly. My other phone works with my laptop. I can send over AirDrop with that. So it's not my laptop. It's literally just this phone. I don't know why it's not working. And I'm too lazy to actually type out my notes that I've already typed out on my phone. So I just choose to go in here and look at it instead. Yeah, very strange. And I'm pretty sure nobody is not enough people are listening to help me out with this, so I'm not even going to bother. But yeah. Oh, and then I actually think what happened to my notes? These are my notes from last time. Do I even have my notes for this fight? What happened to these? What? Maybe it was a different. Could have been a different one. Different note. My bad. What happened here? What? Because I see Dakota, Hill, Holtzman, Guida, Rosenstrike, Dalcha, Shabazian. Then my bonuses for the week. Huh. Well, how about that? Yeah, no. Wow, that's weird. Well, That's never happened to me before. I don't actually know what happened to my notes. I think I deleted them by accident. Anyway, I basically remember what happened. I mean, there's really not a whole lot to say. I mean, when I was watching it, it was kind of like, oh, this is kind of what I expected for the most part. It was back and forth the whole time. And of course, Cannonier ended up winning 48-47. I think it was a split, right? Yeah, it was a split. Right. Oh, yeah. That's right. It was the weird scorecards again. Yeah, I had him winning 48-47 because I think that made a lot of sense. And actually, Cannonier said that himself. He said, okay, I thought I won 3 rounds. 48-47 makes a lot of sense. I had it scored the same way. I'm not saying you could have had it. You couldn't have had it any other way because I think, honestly, it was pretty reasonable. Well, I don't know. It's kind of the same thing that we talked about earlier with the blood from Garcia. It's like, how can you justify having opposite conflicting 49-46s where, like one judge has it 49-46 for Strickland, the other has it 49-46 for Cannonier? How do you justify that? How is that possible? Like, if the system works, that should be impossible to happen. It's just crazy. And I mean, especially when he heard both of them, when they were hearing 49-46, you could see Strickland was like 49-46. The fuck? And I was kind of thinking that too. I was like, oh, that's interesting. 49-46. All right. Okay. And I definitely did not expect to hear a second 49-46 in the other direction, because Strickland was ready to leave as soon as he heard 49-46 Cannonier, but then he heard 49-46 Strickland, and he was like, well, hold on a sec. I'm back in it. What happened? And then, yeah. And then I think the third one, I believe, was 48-47 for Cannonier. I don't quote me on that. I don't remember, but I think that's what it was, which again, that one made sense. 48-47. And I could have actually seen 48-47 either way. But then the craziest part of it is that none of the rounds were unanimous. Not a single round, not even one of them were unanimous across all the judges. Every single round had somebody flipped. So it's like, again, how is that possible? I understand how close it was because I was thinking the same thing too. I was like, oh, this is pretty close. But, like if we claim to, we don't even claim to have a system that works anymore because we don't. But you got to do something about, like you got to fix the rule set at that point, like the scoring, how a fight is scored at that point. You have to switch it because you can't have all 5 rounds where nobody knows who won. Nobody agrees on who won on all 5 rounds. That's crazy. You can't, like, that should literally be impossible to happen. And again, people are going to be like, oh, well, it was close. I agree. It was close. But that should never mean, like, if you have a scoring system that works, it should never be 5 rounds where nobody's scoring it the same way. All 5 rounds. That should be impossible. And you should also never have a 49-46 on conflicting sides. That should never happen either. So it's like, there's just so much broken with this. I mean, I don't know how much longer we have to talk about this before something ends up changing. I mean, it's crazy and so frustrating to see. I can't wait. You know what? What I actually just realized is I'm sure someday, 5-10 years down the road where I'm in my 30s or something like that, I'm going to be looking back on this and be like, oh, remember when the score set was just trash? Remember when the rules and all that with the scoring and the judging was just honestly mind-blowingly bad? Oh, man, that was crazy. But now we have all these nice rules and everything works out. I know someday we're going to get to that point because, it's a sport. It's also one of the most popular sports. So You can't keep going like that. It will eventually get fixed. I just can't wait to see how they fix it, and I can't wait to see it be fixed because this is crazy. This is absolutely insane to see week after week, literally almost every single week. It's like, well, that was weird. That was a weird scorecard. Like that shouldn't happen. Anyway, bonuses for the night. I mean, I think they were pretty clear. KO of the night, I gave to Drew Dober. I almost gave it to Caceres. I was pretty close. But yeah, Drew Dober. I mean, nobody does that to Green. Nobody knocks out Green like that. And then also to come back because he was also down, clearly down after the first round. So that's a crazy KO. So I had to go with that. Sub of the night, I mean, Said Nurmagomedov obviously locked that in with that come from behind submission win where he got dominated for every single second of the fight, really. Brawl of the night had to be Drew Dober and Bobby Green. Actually, I was close. I really was close to giving it to Garcia and Maheshate. I was close. I was very close to giving it to them because of how much blood. I mean, that's crazy. 20% of your blood all over the canvas. So I almost gave it to them. But, Dober and Green, it was the only fight of the night where I was watching it where I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Oh my God, this is so exciting. That was the only fight of the night that I had it with that. So Brawl of the night had to be Dober and Green. Most valuable fighter, I honestly don't even think there's really a question of who that was. Arman Tsarukyan had to be. I mean, he just dominated for 3 rounds straight, 15 minutes straight. Well, actually, okay. Demir had a couple of good moments in there, to be fair, but Demir was on a 19 fight winning streak, and Tsarukyan made him just look average, like just another guy. Like nobody can do, like, that's crazy to do. That is crazy to dominate somebody who's that good in that kind of way. So I mean, I could not really have been too much more impressed by what Tsarukyan did. I mean, it was absolute dominance, absolutely insane. Probably a future champion. Like, I mean, Islam, I honestly do believe he's going to be champ for quite a while. Because let's be honest, I love Volkanovski, and I really do think he is pound for pound number 2. I really do think those are number 1 and 2, and I don't really know how you could argue it any other way too much. I really do think that's a pretty clear number 1 and 2 because nobody's beating them in their own division. Like no featherweight is beating Volkanovski ever, and no lightweight is beating Islam. I just can't see it, except for maybe Tsarukyan in a couple years, like maybe Tsarukyan gets slightly better and then has a really, really good performance against Islam, and then maybe something crazy happens and he gets the win. Maybe. But honestly, I think what'll most likely happen is Islam either starts fighting at 170 eventually and gives up lightweight, or he eventually, retires, and then Tsarukyan has his chance to swoop in and get the win, or, some injury or whatever, and Islam has to, then Tsarukyan can get an interim belt, something like that. But I really do think that Tsarukyan is the most obvious kind of guy for that to happen to, where he's going to be an interim champ, or he's going to swoop in someday when Islam is gone. I really do think that he is that good, and I don't really know why people aren't giving him enough credit for that. Like, it seems like people are just thinking, he's not that good. Like, what are you talking about? He's also like, what, 25, 24 or something? Like, what? Or maybe, actually, no, he might be like 26 or something now. I can't remember. He's like 25 or 26. Like, what are you talking about? Like, he's still getting better, and he's already good enough to basically, I think, be in easily the top 5. And I think he would destroy a lot of the people in the top 5. The only person I think he'd have a problem with, I think he'd have a problem maybe with Charles, maybe, and definitely with Islam. I think Islam would win. But other than that, honestly, I think Tsarukyan's got it. I really do. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what people are seeing. I don't know. I don't know what people are thinking here. I think they're way overlooking him. Anyway, that is enough for the UFC. That is it for all of the UFC related stuff. We will take a quick break and then we'll talk about Canadian MMA, Unified MMA, Unified 48 and 49. That was last Friday and Saturday. It actually was on Fight Pass right after the Vegas card. So it was right there. Could have watched it. Hope you did, because that was actually the more entertaining one, I thought, funny enough. But yeah, we'll open with Unified 48 after we take a short break. I will be back right after this.
Allow me to introduce High Stick Vodka, a new way to celebrate victory. Gather around the glass with an award-winning, ultra-premium Canadian-made vodka. You probably won't listen when I say High Stick Vodka has a smooth, hard-hitting taste, or that it's developed in the birthplace of hockey. You won't listen when I say High Stick Vodka is a tribute to the game of hockey, or when I tell you it's distilled 4 times using Canada's purest mountain spring water to provide an authentic, remarkable flavor. But maybe you will listen when I say it comes in a f***ing hockey stick. Showcase your passion for hockey with our limited edition hand-blown hockey stick bottle. Whether you're celebrating victory or drinking to defeat, High Stick Vodka is better after every shot. Visit us at highstickvodka.com. It also comes in this regular bottle. Celebrate victory. Drink responsibly.
And we're back with the MMA content. And of course, like I said, the rest of it is going to be Unified MMA. That's Unified MMA 48 and 49. Man, almost at the 50. That's going to be cool. I love milestones. Oh, man. But anyway, so Unified 48. This was on the Friday. We'll start with that. By the way, I didn't end up posting my bonuses. I had a lot going on, so I didn't end up posting the bonuses, but I did make the bonuses and I will talk about them. So, I didn't forget and I didn't, just completely disregard it. I do have the bonuses. Like I said, just didn't post them. Had a lot of stuff going on. So, first fight of the night, that was Teshay, Gouthro, and Morgan Rines. I believe it's pronounced Rines. Yeah, I think so. Anyway, straight out of the gate, Gouthro jumped in, landed a beautiful takedown. Rines got back. This was my article. So I don't have the abridged version. Lots of grappling really from Gouthro. That's what I remember most of it. I mean, and I actually remember this because I saw a Gouthro fight before. I knew he was good at grappling, and I knew that's the approach he was going to be taking here. So yeah, heavy grappling. Just pushed him into the fence the whole first round. Not a whole lot of damage, but I mean, Rines had absolutely nothing going with him. So for him, so Gouthro, first round, pretty clear on the scorecards. Second round, Rines got some good combos going. Sadly, that was short-lived. And then Gouthro, started with the grappling again, dragged him out of the canvas. Rines was trying. He was trying to get back up, but Gouthro just completely in control. In the clinch, mostly along the fence, but also on the ground a little bit. And he did actually manage to land a few more shots, doing a bit of damage this round. So again, 2-0. Pretty obvious round. Third round, open with more heavy grappling, more along the fence. Did get him down a couple of times. Some clinch striking along the fence. Unfortunately, for Rines, he did get back up, no, that's right. He did actually get into the center of the cage at one point, finally, because really it was pretty much all on the fence or on the ground the entire fight. So, he did end up getting a chance when they went into the center of the cage there, but then he started to get lit up by Gouthro on the feet as well, who then ended up pushing him back into the fence where the fight, continued in that one-way style, just one-way traffic the entire time. Pretty impressive prospecting Gouthro. Obviously not an exciting style yet. And I think he was pretty young too. I don't remember how old, but I think he was under 30 or at least like early 30s. I think, I can't remember though. I do think he was 25, somewhere in the mid 20s, low 20s though. I think, I'm pretty sure. Again, I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure. So, he's definitely got a good future, but you need to do a little bit more than that, especially since we've been talking about damage. You have to do something with the positions. You can't just hold somebody there and expect to win like that for the rest of your career, because it doesn't work like that. That does not happen. Eventually, somebody is going to challenge you and you're going to lose. Or eventually, the judges aren't going to like what you're doing and you're going to lose. It just doesn't work out. That's not a style that's good. But that being said, he's clearly an impressive prospect. So I just hope that, he develops it further to then do some damage, get some submissions going in there as well. But very impressive. Good win. Next after that, it was Ergys Sigeta and Casey Radden. And really, this started off exactly the same way. I'm not going to lie. This was not the most exciting card in terms of the fights. Normally, I really like these regional MMA ones. There's always some exciting moments, and it did have some exciting moments. I'm not saying it didn't, but the first few fights, especially, it was like, okay, enough of this grappling along the fence and just control. Like, it's not viewer friendly. Like, we don't want to see that. So it was pretty boring to start, and this one started the same way. Sigeta pushed Radden into the fence, eventually got him down to the ground. Sigeta using a lot of pressure from the top. And really, that was just the whole first round. There's nothing really else to say. I mean, it was just control. So obvious round for Sigeta, just not exciting at all. Second round, obviously went for the takedown again. This time, though, he did actually take advantage of the situation. A lot more ground and pound. And then really nonstop offense from there. So it did get more exciting and more action from there. Really just a couple more minutes of dominance, looked for a good choke, eventually locked one in, and put Radden to sleep, actually. Full on unconscious, fully asleep. Again, very impressive win for Sigeta. Did start off pretty slow, like I said, but pretty impressive way to finish it with putting your opponent to sleep. That's always a crazy sight. The only thing crazier than that is when you see somebody snap something, like an arm gets snapped in half or a leg or something crazy with the submissions where it's like, oh my God, maybe you should have tapped, when you see one like that. But putting somebody to sleep like that's pretty crazy too. The third fight, that's where it got more interesting. That's where I was sold. That's where I was like, okay, this is the real deal here now. Louis Jourdain. And yes, it is the same Jourdain. This is the brother of Charles Jourdain. Louis, I'm pretty sure in French it's actually Louis. I mean, I took French for 14 years. I'm pretty sure it's Louis. Anyway, Jourdain, amazing. Seriously, cannot stress enough how impressive this performance was. And I did give him the bonus later. We can talk about that after, though. But yeah, seriously, I mean, you can really tell that he is the brother of Charles Jourdain because he looked very similar, very, very similar. Just a little smaller, I think. I think he was fighting at, was it bantamweight or flyweight? I can't remember what he was fighting at, but he was a little bit smaller. So they're not in the same weight class, but very, very similar style, and that just constant aggressive pressure, always looking for a knockout. This Jourdain, very much the same, very fun to watch. I'm sure he'll get something after this. Anyway, this is where it started to get fun to watch. Like I said, wobbled segment a couple of times. He was landing some crazy combos here, very crisp. And I even actually said here, he actually looks like he should already be in the UFC. That's what I thought when I was watching it. I was like, honestly, this looks like somebody who's already in the UFC or who maybe lost the wrong fight and then was kicked from the UFC for some weird reason. That's what it looked like to me. He was that good, where it was like, oh, he should already be in the UFC. Never mind the Contender Series. I mean, give this guy a spot in the Contender Series right away. That's what I think. But yeah, anyway, Jourdain looking so good. Really could have been a 10-8 in the first. I mean, just destroyed his face, blood all over the place. And like I said, wobbled him a couple of times. Sagman did get a takedown in there, so maybe the takedown defense not quite at that level yet, but everything else, though, incredible. Like I said, maybe even a 10-8. Sagman getting pieced up again early in the second round. I should say Gabe Sagman was the opponent. I didn't even mention Gabe Sagman. I really should have, against Louis Jourdain. And then Sagman was close to getting a takedown again in the second, but Jourdain kept shutting that down. So, I mean, maybe the first one just caught him off guard, or maybe the early strength of Sagman kind of threw him off and he landed it. But it really wasn't a concern. Like, he did get back up and he was obviously dominating. So, I mean, it wasn't really a huge deal. I'm just trying to find a flaw in the game, honestly. I mean, the takedown defense, maybe not at UFC level, but everything else, I mean, sensational. Seriously, crazy. And then, I mean, end of the second round, it literally looked like he was in a car crash, Sagman. I mean, seriously, he was absolutely destroyed. Barely made it back to his stool. I mean, he did not look good at all. And I honestly thought he was going to get to the third round, but the corner just said, nah, like, this is not getting any better for you. You are going to get knocked out and you are going to lose. He didn't say that out loud, I don't think. I mean, we couldn't hear the audio, but that was kind of the impression we were getting, as it's like, yeah, this is not going to last. And I mean, I don't know why it took this long, but I mean, they were kind of just sitting. Oh, actually, no, this was a different one. This was a different one I was thinking of for them, because there was another one that was called off the same way, where it took a long time for them to make the decision. This one was like, yeah, no, we're done. it was like, yeah, no, we're good. And it looked like a second 10-8 round, to be honest. I actually probably would have scored it at 20-16, maybe 20-17. It was not looking good, like I said. And I actually don't even think Sagman is horrible. I mean, it just tells you how good Jourdain was, because, yeah, he is unbelievably good. Unbelievably good. Cannot wait to see him again. And I know we're going to see him again. Especially, I wouldn't even be surprised if, like, I think that Canada is supposed to get a UFC event next year. I would not be surprised if he was on the card with his brother, and then even maybe one or two other guys from one of these cards, because, yeah, I mean, he was that good. Anyway, moving on. Jesse Stirn, Vladimir Kazbekov, pretty close. And this one was actually a fairly exciting fight, I will admit. This actually, really, the rest of the night. I think it was just the start of the night that kind of bugged me because it was so slow. But after that, I really should say, because now that I'm actually looking at who was actually after that, pretty solid night. Pretty solid night. Stirn, Kazbekov. Kazbekov came in crazy, walking Stirn down, throwing wild shots, then started to go for grappling, throwing Stirn around the cage. I said page. Throwing him around the cage. Somehow Kazbekov managed to keep that pace going for quite a while. I mean, it didn't even seem like it was bugging Stirn that much. It just seemed like Stirn was like, well, I can't even get any activity going. I mean, this guy's a lunatic. He's not letting me even move. That's kind of what was happening. And then with a late flurry, I mean, Stirn did actually manage to steal the momentum and take his back on the ground with a pretty late flurry there. I mean, it was looking pretty good for Stirn there, but because Kazbekov started to slow down. But, with that early, it's hard not to give Kazbekov the round with the first 3 to 4 minutes, because it was a pretty dominant 3 to 4 minutes. So I gave him that, but it could have gone either way on the cards right there. Yeah, but the second round, that's where it started to change. And you kind of figure when somebody comes out that hard, like Kazbekov did in the first round, how are they going to respond in the second and the third round? Are they going to be completely drained? And that seemed to be more so what was happening in this fight in the second and third round, where Kazbekov started a lot slower. He was starting to struggle. He was also struggling to land his strikes again because the speed, the cardio wasn't so much there anymore. Kazbekov did actually kind of start to recover, pushing the pace, throwing some wild combos, but Stirn landed a takedown to close the round that I thought gave him the round. So I thought it was 1-1 going into the final one. It was pretty close though. Um, I really wouldn't have questioned honestly, it was just it was a tough fight to score. And the commentators were saying that the whole time. It was just a really tough one to score, and it really was. But yeah, I had it tied. Third round, where are we here? Third round, much slower than the others. I think they were both kind of being affected by the pace at this point, but still some pretty good shots landed, pretty even about halfway through. And then Stirn landed a couple of big shots, transitioned to the ground. Kazbekov did get a nice guillotine attempt from there from the bottom, but Stirn got out of it and then really started to take control on the ground. And it was pretty close like all the other rounds. So, I mean, we talked about this earlier too. It was like this really could have gone either way on all three rounds. Like it's kind of like one of those Strickland and Cannonier, where it's like, I don't know what's going on here. But I did give it 29-28 to Stirn. And the judges didn't really think it was quite as close, I guess, because they all had it. Actually, no, two of them had it 30-27 for Stirn, and one of them had it, same as me, 29-28 for Stirn. But like I said, all three of those rounds were up for grabs. They really were. Well, except for maybe the last round. I think that was more clear that was a Stirn round. Fifth fight, another very exciting finish, let's say. Exciting fight. Pytlik started right away, pushed Hill into the fence within the first 30 seconds. It's quick to start there. Heavy clinch work going. Lots of body shots against Michael Hill. I should say, why do I keep doing that? I need to actually say this was Pat Pytlik and Michael Hill. I should introduce both of them first, especially since if anybody actually watches this, they probably don't know who these guys are or who is in the fight. So probably should say that. Anyway, so yeah, Pytlik landing a lot of body shots on Hill. Then they separated, and Pytlik still had the edge, landing a lot of heavy shots. And after that, it was over before it ever even really started. Pytlik swarmed in with the combos, dropped him to the ground. That was it. Easy KO for Pat Pytlik on that one. Then it got very exciting with the co-main. This was this my fight of the night? It was. This was my brawl of the night. Scott Hudson, Austin Tweedy. Very, very exciting. I loved this one. I really did. Tweedy appeared to be the cleaner guy early, and I think he actually was the favorite going into this, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure he was, darting in and out, landing some clean shots. Hudson, yep, I was just checking to see if that was the right name. Yep, Hudson. Hudson was still walking him down, though, pushing Tweedy back. As the round went on, Hudson started to gain the momentum back until Tweedy dropped him with a bomb. From there, Tweedy jumped on top, ground and pound, moving to the back of Hudson. Hudson did recover well, but struggling with the pressure of Tweedy. I mean, pretty clear round for Tweedy, I would say. He got, what did I say? Yeah, the knockdown, ground and pound, all that kind of stuff. First round for Tweedy. Second round, Tweedy looked a lot slower in the second round, which then, of course, let Hudson kind of get some things going. Landed a lot on the feet, ended up busting up his nose halfway through the round. it actually really looked like Hudson was going to get a finish here. He was just ripping Tweedy apart. I mean, it was, like I said, this was an exciting back and forth fight. It really was. Then, sadly, bit of controversy ensued as Tweedy complained about an alleged eye poke. I say alleged because I don't know. They weren't really sure if he was actually eye poked or not. This led to some much needed rest time and a visit from the doctor. I can't remember why. I forget why the doctor. I think the cut was so bad that the doctor was brought in too to check on that. Yeah, I think that's why he was brought in. And it was looking pretty rough. I remember that actually. Yeah, it was pretty rough because I did write down here. Amazingly, the doctor did let it go. Putting Tweedy straight back into the fire, unless it was a pretty bad eye poke. I can't remember why I said that. I can't remember. Anyway, still very exciting. Tweedy managed to grab a takedown. Then in another controversial move, clearly it was a controversial eye poke where it was questionable whether, yeah, oh, now I do remember it. Yeah, Tweedy was getting ripped apart. He was bleeding quite a bit. So the commentators were saying, oh, maybe the doctor might actually stop it because it was looking pretty bad. And yeah, it wasn't really an eye poke at all. But yeah, then we saw the more controversial move. Tweedy landed an illegal up kick, pushing Hudson to his back. Didn't hit him in the head. It wasn't anything like egregious that we've seen in the last couple months, especially. But it was still like, okay, well, that's an illegal up kick, pretty clearly. Put Hudson on his back. But yeah, honestly, the damage, I don't think I was doing justice to how bad the damage was. I mean, the doctor was brought in for a good reason, actually, because I even said I may have even given a 10-8 to Hudson. And this, I remember specifically actually them saying this might have been actually the clearest 10-8 of the night, because they were screaming 10-8 the whole day, and I was kind of like, I don't think a lot of these are 10-8s. I think the Jourdain ones were pretty close to being 10-8, but this one, I actually even said I think this was probably a 10-8. It was rough. Hudson opened hard once again, pushing Tweedy into the fence. Landed a couple of heavy combos with the fight, then moving to the ground. There again, it was all Hudson, ground and pound. Tweedy had a couple of good moments on the ground, but it was another pretty clear round for Hudson. And the judges agreed, scoring it 29-28, all 29-28s too for Hudson. Which again, pretty fair. Pretty fair. Crazy fight though. Crazy fight. Then we had the main event, the super lightweight title, which I think is kind of a pointless title to have, but what are you going to do? I just think, I think it's like 165. At that point, it's like welterweight's 5 pounds up. Just welterweight. Just do that. Like, I don't know. It seems like a strange one to me. I don't like it. That being said, Shane Campbell, pretty fucking good. And that's who was fighting in the main event. If you don't recognize that name, yes, he was in the UFC. Hurricane. Well, actually, no. I think he changed his nickname. It's like Shaolin Shane Campbell. I thought it was Hurricane Shane Campbell. Personally, that's what I thought it was, but apparently it's not. It's Shaolin. Anyway, Shane Campbell, regardless of his nickname, Darren Smith Jr., who is actually also pretty good. I think he was in Bellator before this. Not bad, not a bad fighter really either. And to be honest, it really was not all that close. Shane Campbell was way ahead though, pretty much the entire time. Striking was close early, back and forth the first round. Campbell then seemed to steal the momentum from there, with the takedowns, the grappling. That's what he's more so known for. In addition to his crazy kicks, he is pretty good on the ground. Actually, yeah, he's more known for the striking. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, Smith did get back up, but that was short-lived. Campbell quickly dragged him back down again. This time, busted Smith's face open, made him leak pretty bad, then transitioned to his back, almost getting a submission. So, obvious first round for Campbell. Almost won it. The bell kind of saved him. The bell kind of saved Smith, I should say. And Smith was in trouble right away again. Campbell landed a lot of great combos. Shane looked fresh, like just completely fresh in the second round, where Smith was already like, oh boy, like I don't know how he's gonna last. I don't know how he's gonna last. This is a 5-round fight. I don't think he's gonna last that long. Pushed Smith to the ground once again. They did go back to their feet, and then Shane kept slamming these leg kicks, throwing these crazy combos, clinching a second round on the cards. I think that was pretty obvious again. Smith did come back in the third round pretty strong. I was very impressed, trying to walk Campbell down. Sadly, didn't really work out. Campbell ended up landing a couple more brutal leg kicks, dropped Smith to the ground with the leg kicks this time. Smith's strategy from there really kind of to hold on until the next round, as Campbell was just raining down ground and pound. It was not even close. So another third round, obvious round for Shane Campbell on that one. Fourth round, open with a head kick. Open the fourth round with a head kick. Who does that? Forced Smith to shoot for takedowns along the fence. Why? I don't know, because he already was losing on the ground. I mean, you might as well just stand up and try and get a finish at that point, because the ground game isn't working either. But Campbell finished on top. Huge shots on the ground. Instead of going for the TKO, though, he then switched to the back of Smith, then locked in a pretty slick submission. Then Smith was forced to tap, giving Campbell an amazing win. Sad end to it, though, I will say, because he actually kind of re-injured his knee. Oh, actually, it kind of Smith tweaked it, tweaked the knee of Campbell just before the fight ended. It was in that last grappling exchange where Campbell hurt himself, but he stood up after he got the submission and immediately took a dive onto the canvas because he was like, oh, my knee's fucked. Oh boy. So that's a tough injury to see, especially when he's already had an injured knee recently. So you don't want to see that. Hopefully it's not something too bad. But honestly, I really would not be surprised if he got a UFC return. I don't know. Again, this would be another one where I think what they would probably do, the UFC would probably do, is when they come to Canada next year, Shane's got to be on it. They'll give Shane a fight. They'll give Jourdain a fight. Hopefully Charles Jourdain on the same card. They'll give him a fight. I think that would be the smartest way to do it, but we'll see what they do. I mean, we'll see. They have a history of doing some weird things. So we'll see what they do, but I'd like to see that. That would be really cool. Bonuses, KO of the night, Pat Pytlik. I mean, that was dominance. It was the first round. Crazy. Sub of the night, I gave to Shane Campbell. I think that was pretty clear. I mean, he earned it. Amazing. Brawl of the night, no question. I mean, that Hudson and Tweedy one was pretty solid to watch. And then I had two most valuable fighters, and I do usually do this on the regional cards because it kind of means more and they need to be given a little bit more recognition. I gave it to Jourdain, who, like I said, really should be in the UFC right now. And I think he's like 23 or something. So he's really young too, and he's already pretty solid. So I'm sure he's going to be getting an opportunity. Shane Campbell, same kind of reasoning. He's undefeated in Unified, which I can't remember. It's like something like 10-0 or something like that in Unified, which is crazy. I mean, and he just dominated in another flawless performance against somebody who I've actually seen listed before. I think it was in Bellator a couple of times. I've seen him on cards before where he's listed. Obviously, I don't watch those cards, but well, not obvious. I guess it is Bellator. I don't watch Bellator. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, I've seen the guy's name before, so I know he's half decent, but I mean, it was just a clean sweep. I mean, there was no danger whatsoever coming back at Shane Campbell at all. Like he clearly won that fight. So amazing to see. He's just kind of slightly too old for the UFC to be interested and not quite good enough for them to be interested. So I don't know how long that return would last, but I do think he deserves the second shot. And I hope that they give it to him when they come next year. I think that's, I don't know who else would be. I mean, he's probably the number one person you would give it to. You know, I don't see anybody else who's like, oh, that guy should definitely get it. I mean, you know, maybe Naveed Zangane, but I mean, you know, he's like what 1-0 or 2-0 because of the one fight. I mean, it was dominance, but you know, they're never going to give him a debut at 2 or 3 and 2-0. Like, no, they'd put him on the contender series way before that. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, Shane seems like the obvious choice to the number one choice even for the UFC to bring in somebody new for their Canadian fight, which I'm assuming is probably going to be Toronto. Hope it's Vancouver. Probably not though. Probably Toronto. Maybe even Montreal. If it's in Montreal, I mean Jourdain got to be there. Both of them have got to be there. I mean seriously. But anyway, enough of that. We'll get back to the task at hand. Unified 49. So that was UFC. That was Unified 48. That was on Friday. This one, Unified 49, directly followed the Vegas card. And it was also pretty solid. I actually might have liked this one even more. It was pretty good. And we finally had a female fight, had the women's fight on a regional MMA. I'm not even kidding when I say I've only seen 2 this entire year that had a women's fight. I mean, that's egregious. Like that's actually ridiculous that's happening. Seriously, you're telling me that no women in Canada are fighting? Like what's happening? I mean, that's silly. That's honestly offensive. Like I'm actually a little bit offended by that. Like it's crazy that they don't even get a chance. Like I don't know. It's just absurd. It's honestly crazy to me. Anyway, that aside, hopefully they fix that and they start getting more women's fights in. But I'm glad we had at least another one to close the year. And I think it was actually one in BFL and one in one in Unified. They both had one the whole year. Ridiculous. Anyway, it opened with Caleb Ermine and Matt Clute. Clute was the one pressuring early, walking Ermine down into the fence. Ermine was actually kind of seemed to be like the more active guy, even though he was getting walked down and he was moving backwards. He actually still seemed to be the more active guy, throwing out some pretty quick combos. Clute then had the first big moment of the fight, wobbling Ermine, pinning him into the fence. Then Ermine seemed to, then I should say Clute started to make some mistakes. Ermine then reversed him along the fence, grabbed a takedown, and then it was really just all Ermine. Really not even just that round, but the rest of the fight. It was all Ermine from there. Holding Clute down, searching for submissions there. And, you know, it was close that first round, but I gave the first round to Ermine because he had the better moments later in the round. So I gave it to Ermine, but it was pretty close. I could have seen it going either way. Second round, Ermine, pretty clear control right away, pushed Clute to the fence. Like I said, knew he had the grappling advantage at that point, and it really wasn't really all that close in the grappling after that. The control lasted pretty much the entire second round. And yeah, that was about it. 30 seconds into the that was about it for the second round. So that was an obvious round for Ermine. So could have been 1-1 on my card. I kind of had it 2-0 for Ermine, but again, could have seen it either way. Third round, 30 seconds in, and Ermine was already deep into a takedown, pinning Klute against the fence. And this is what I was saying again. It was kind of like the night before, where it's like, let's get this over with. It's not really an exciting kind of fight. It's just a lot of control time, a lot of boring grappling along the fence with nothing really happening a lot. And again, I'm not saying I don't like grappling. I love grappling. I think an insane grappling match is one of the most exciting things you can watch. Because when I saw, especially, and I'm going to bring this up again, Raul Rosas Jr. on the Contender Series, that fight that he had, that was crazy to watch for me. Just mind-blowing, the things that people can do down there. But this is not one of those fights. This is just like, I'm going to push you against the fence for the next 15 minutes, and I'm going to win. That's boring as shit. But effective sometimes. And in this case, it was effective. Third round, like I said. What was I saying here? Yep. Halfway through the round, Klute finally managed to get something going. Reversed Ermine, took his back, landed some ground and pound. Honestly, I think he could have easily gotten a finish. I don't know what he was doing. I truly don't, because at that point, it's like, do you not realize that you can easily get a finish here? Like, truly. It was like, even the commentators were like, oh, that's interesting. I thought, I think he easily could have gotten a finish there. And I actually agree. I was thinking that too. I was like, this is weird. like literally just a few more shots, just jump in there and he would have gotten the finish and the win, but he didn't. And he paid for it because, lost. So I had it 29-28. I think I had it 29-28. Maybe 30-27, but I think I actually did have it 29-28. And that's exactly what the judges had too. They had it 29-28 for Ermine. Yeah, because of those first two rounds. So yeah, I don't know. He blew it, honestly. Oh, where is it? This is for Matt Klute. I'm sorry, but you blew it. And I hate to say, I don't like to say that to the lesser known fight, the ones that aren't in the UFC, but seriously, you had the finish right there. You could have gotten it done. You could have saved it. You could have saved the win, grabbed the win, and it didn't happen. But good win for Ermine. There you go. Second round. This is the women's fight. The second women's fight of the year, the first in Unified that I can remember. I mean, maybe I'm forgetting one that I'm totally blanking on, but honestly, I can only think of the Alanimal and Maria Demers in BFL. That's one. And then this one. Only two. I genuinely cannot think I'm like 90% sure, maybe 80% sure that there has been no other women's fights on the Fight Pass ones for BFL and Unified, which again, criminal, really. Even though I do like BFL and Unified, do better in that way. There are people around. I guarantee you there are fighters around. It's not that hard to just get it going, especially when you're higher. Some of these fighters, some of the guys that you're getting in, they've got a losing record. You're telling me that there's not a single women's fighter, there's not a single woman in Canada that has a winning record that you want to showcase? Not even one? Like, that's crazy. There has to be. I just think it's crazy. I don't know. But anyway, this was actually a very solid fight. And what's crazy is the only two women's fights I've seen this entire year for the Canadian MMA have been crazy. I loved that Demers, and I can't remember because I follow Maria Demers now. She's really cool, but I know her nickname is the Alanimal. It's like Alana something or something like that. It's something like that. I just can't remember her name off the top of my head, and I follow her too because it was so good. Man, I can't remember. But anyway, that was a solid fight, and this was a solid fight. So it's like both of the women's fights have been fantastic to watch. Very entertaining. So I don't know why they don't do it more. But anyway, the last time I'm going to say that. Shannon Clark, Joe Maisonneuve. I think Maisonneuve was a fairly significant favorite going into this. And I mean, I'm not going to lie. When they started fighting, I was like, oh, this is why, like this is lower women's MMA here, where it's like one fighter is very good and the other one, not so much. Kind of looked like, I don't want to sound mean because to be honest, it actually turned out where the other person won. So I don't want to shit on anybody. Really, I don't. But when it started, my first thought was, okay, Maisonneuve looks very good and dangerous. And Clark kind of looks like a soccer mom who's just kind of doing MMA to try something new. And, like it just didn't really look all that good because she looked super tense and there was no smoothness at all. Like, I'm not saying I would be good in there, but I know I wouldn't be that, even I wouldn't be that tense. Like, you've got to be a little looser than that. Like, it was not looking good. And I will say it wasn't looking good either at first. That's what I was saying. It's like, this is all one-sided, but then got very interesting. And I will get into that right now. Like I said, Maisonneuve, I'll just say Joe because it's shorter. Joe had the first moment early in the fight, used a kick, pushed Clark on her back. Like I said, I mean, it was just like, okay, so you just got pushed to the ground by a push kick in like the first minute. That's not a good look already. It's kind of embarrassing, actually. It's an embarrassing look. I'm not saying it's embarrassing to get hit by a push kick, because let's be honest, literally anybody in any of these shows would push kick me square to the chest and knock me to the ground easily. I have no doubt in my mind that would happen. So again, not shitting on anybody, but again, not a good look to start. Joe clearly appeared to be the looser fighter, like I said. I mean, she was moving really well. She was really smooth with how she was striking. Looked pretty powerful too. She was pretty big. And then she dropped Clark with a heavy combo. And like I said, it just looked all one-sided. I was like, oh, this is bad. Like, when you get that feeling when you watch a fight and it's like, ooh, ooh, like this is a bad one because this is a clear mismatch and I don't want to see what happens next. Like it was getting to that kind of vibe where it's like, oh, this is not good. That's the vibe I was getting, but she never let it slow her down. Shannon Clark never never slowed down really. Still kept throwing, walking Maisonneuve down. I was very impressed. I was starting to get impressed just by the toughness alone. And then Maisonneuve, kept that momentum going early, slammed Clark into the canvas. Obviously not even close at that point. Then did get a little bit closer near the start of the first round. Clark came alive with some pretty wild combos in the round, but it was a little bit too late. Pretty clear round for Joe Maisonneuve there. But Clark, like I said, wasn't phased by it. Her nose was bleeding a little bit. Her eyes were, I think she had a black eye already a little bit. So like I said, clearly not looking good, but she looked like super intense. She still had that intensity there. And I was just so impressed by that alone, because it's like, you see a lot of the male fighters coming on and they hit that adversity and they're out. They're out. Like, that's it. But this time it's like, she was like, no, I'm still here. I'm still fighting. I'm still with it. What are you talking? Like, let's get going. Let's get going again. That's the impression that you started to get. And she seemed pissed about the first round. She knew. She was like, that was a horrible first round. I'm coming in crazy strong here and I'm gonna get it back. Very impressed. I cannot stress enough how impressed I was and still am with Shannon Clark on this one, because she started to walk Joe down, pressuring her hard with jabs. And she was pressuring, but, again, it was kind of a similar thing where it was like Maisonneuve was the one doing more damage because Shannon was just kind of walking straight into her. You're going to get hit if you do that to the wrong person. And she kind of was. she was definitely getting hit, and Clark was getting stopped in her tracks multiple times. Like I said, busting her nose open pretty bad here. Um, and then Clark looked like she was finally gonna have a first moment of the fight with a takedown, then sadly slipped. How unlucky can you get? Slipped, and Maisonneuve was the one who ended on top. I'm like, it's so unlucky too. Like, oh my god, because she actually looked like she was finally gonna have a good moment, and then just out of nowhere, whoops, slipped, and then ends up on the bottom. Awful, terrible luck. But Clark fought back, ended up on top. Then she had her biggest moments of the fight, lit Maisonneuve up on the feet, wild combos along the fence, and all that damage. All that damage. It was so much damage. I mean, it was like, holy shit, okay, this fight really turned around real quick. Um, I actually gave the round to Clark on that one. So it was tied, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter because Maisonneuve looked to be in very, very rough shape in the corner. Actually, kind of struggled to get back to the corner. It was pretty rough. And honestly, it was kind of confusing. This is actually the fight I was referencing earlier, where they were just sitting there. Clark's corner and everybody already gone. You know, the 30 seconds is up, or 50, whatever it is, 30 seconds or a minute. It was already up. And Shannon Clark was just standing there like, hey, what the fuck's going on here? I mean, seriously. Because Maisonneuve was just sitting there on the stool. The corner is still there. I think the doctor was there too. And it's like, what are we doing here? Like, and it was like 2 or 3 minutes deep. Like, what's going on? Like, the fight's off. Like, according to the rules, if you don't get up after the you know the 30 seconds or a minute, whatever the time limit is, if you don't stand up after that, the fight's automatically over. So it's kind of like, what's happening here? Like, the ref needs to call the fight off because it's over already. You know, according to the rules, this fight is done. So what are we doing? And eventually they did call it off, but it was a huge, way delayed. I was like, this is bizarre. Yeah. So she waited a couple minutes, but eventually Clark got that TKO stoppage win after the second round. What a comeback. Like I said, I mean, like a minute into this fight, and I was like, oh my God, this brick house Maisonneuve is gonna just absolutely annihilate this soccer mom, Shannon Clark. And then in the end, boy was I wrong. Clark ended up being the dominant force and ended up getting a finish, which again, pretty rare actually for women's MMA, especially, well, regional, it's a little more common because that's actually what I was thinking was happening, because I've seen this on Tapology quite often where regional MMA for women, especially, is it's like you start to, I don't want to say compare it to boxing, but usually what happens is if it's not super close, it's like, whoa, like it's like this person shouldn't be even fighting. And then against somebody who's actually good, that's usually what happens. That's what I noticed in Tapology. This one, I thought it was going the other way for sure. I was like, oh, Shannon Clark does not belong here. This is not good. But I will freely admit that I was dead ass wrong about that, because Shannon Clark really turned it around and landed that crazy combo. You cannot deny the heart is there. The skill, she's definitely got a lot of stuff to work on. That was rough. That was rough the first round. I mean, on the feet and on the ground, it was rough to watch. So definitely got a lot of things to work out. But I mean, to come back like that, I was very, very impressed by that. And enough about that fight. I just really wanted to talk about that one because, well, I mean, I talk about all of them anyway, but specifically that one because I was so impressed. Like, and that's why it's like, why are we not seeing more women's fights? They're all entertaining. They're all good. What is happening? Why are we not doing this more? And that actually is the last time I'm going to say this for the night, for the year, actually. Harley King, Devin Lazege. That was the third fight of the night. Then it kind of looked like another one of those. Lots of grappling, like meh, you know. Lezej, lots of takedown attempts early, pushing King into the fence. King seemed to still be in control of the fight when they separated, landing some good shots. Snapped King's head. Oh, actually, no. I take that back. I will take that back. Lezej had the grappling advantage. Then when they separated, King seemed to be in control, snapping the head back of Lezej. Lezej, relentless with the grappling, though, did get clipped by a couple of clinch strikes that had him leaking onto the canvas. And it's a tough round to score like that because Lezej actually had 4 minutes of control time, but he got destroyed on the feet with his nose was busted up because of that. So I mean, it's tough to score things like that, and we've talked about this a lot now. Do you score 4 minutes of control? That's a lot of control time. Or do you go with the guy, he busted up his nose even though he was pushed against the fence for 4 minutes straight? He was the one that did damage. Tough to say. Tough to say. So I didn't really know how they were going to score that. And I didn't even actually score it that time either because I wasn't even really sure. Grappling continued for Lezej in the second. King reversed him at one point, locking in a sub attempt. Sadly, though, for him, Lezej slipped out of it, went right back into the clinch along the fence. King did get to kind of reverse him near the end of the round. And landed some pretty heavy strikes along the fence, which to me, I kind of thought King stole that round because he did land some pretty good strikes along the fence there. And as we've been kind of saying, Lezej wasn't really doing any damage in the position that he was in. So I didn't really know which way the cards were leaning. Could have been tied, could have been King up 2-0, could have been Lezej up 2-0. It was all over the place at this point. And again, it's the same thing we talked about earlier with the scorecards. Anything could be happening. And King knew that too. He opened hard with his striking, throwing out some combos. Lezej then continued his strategy, pushing King into the fence. But I think the grappling pace was actually starting to get to him instead of King, because King actually looked like the fresher fighter and used that energy to reverse him a few times, land a couple of big combos, landing some heavier strikes. And it was really starting to get to Lezej at that point. King started to press forward, good combos, winning the round. And with all that damage and activity in the final two rounds, it seemed like King was pretty clearly the king in this case. I scored it 29-28, but I could have seen a 30-27, and I could have seen actually a 29-28 either way. But the judges actually ended up going 30-27 for King. I don't even really question that, to be honest, because if we're talking about damage, especially, King did get all the damage in all three rounds. So hard to argue with that. So Harley King got the unanimous decision win over Devin Lezej. Then it was a quick one. It was Cody Reese and Aaron Boziak. Explosive, to say the least. The fight opened with some wild action. Reese opened with some heavy shots. Boziak went for a takedown. Then, as soon as it started, it was all over. Reese took the back of Boziak and put him to sleep. Put him to sleep with a nasty sub in the very first round. Very, very, very impressive submission win for Cody Reese. Very depressing night for Aaron Boziak because that was actually his final fight. He retired after that, and he was going to retire the whole time. It wasn't a reactionary thing. He told people this was going to be his last fight. So that's a tough way to go out. Losing within the first minute, I think. With a nasty submission like that, literally getting put to sleep. That's a rough way to go out. But yeah, pretty solid performance by Cody Reese, obviously. Much younger as well, too. So he's a much younger guy. Am I too surprised by that? No, not really. But yeah, still tough to see. The co-main, that's where it got very, very interesting and very unexpected. I could not believe that this fight went actually just in general, not even ended, just went the way that it did. I didn't actually see the odds going into it, but when I looked at, because I still make my Tapology picks, I looked at it and I was like, oh yeah, no, I see, Nick Hrabik, clearly the favorite in this fight. Going into this, a 9-1 favorite on this one. So Nick Hrabik was. Tim Smith being wildly the underdog, of course, obviously. And I gotta say, when they first started squaring off together and fighting, I was like, yeah, I see why he's the 9-1 underdog in this case. Is Smith. Yeah. he, it just looks like one of those huge skill differences, especially just by looking at them. Smith didn't really look all that good. He was shorter. Didn't really, I mean, he looked pretty fit, but he was definitely shorter, weird kind of stance. The striking not so clean, whereas Hrabik taller, long, young, he moves really smooth. He's got the striking going. He had nice kicks. I was like, well, I see what's happening here. I mean, you see this all the time. You see this all the time where they make this fight on purpose. It's one-sided. Hrabik is obviously going to win. But wow, were we in for a surprise here. Hrabik did come in like a madman. Obviously wanted to get this fight over right away. Make a statement, of course, on Fight Pass, as you do. Pushed Smith into the canvas twice. Smith wasn't phased at all, though. I mean, he really wasn't phased by anything in this fight, which is crazy. Dragged Hrabik to the ground. His excitement was short-lived, though, as Hrabik got up, kept slamming these nasty kicks in. Like I said, the kicks were great. Like a zombie, though, Smith never stopped moving forward, throwing wild, swinging combos at Hrabik. Like I said, not even clean, not even like quick, like boom, like quick ones, like, like Patty level, like swinging. Like that's not the sign of an elite striker. So again, already, I think, it seemed like the favorite was going to obviously walk away with this, being Hrabik. The wild strikes, though, were starting to throw Hrabik off as he got busted open and wobbled a couple of times. I think he was just so thrown off by it. He was like, well, I don't even know where to look. This is crazy. And then with all that, easily stole the round back. I thought Tim Smith clearly won. Well, not clearly necessarily, but stole the first round back because of that. I mean, who'd have thought already Smith would be up one round? Second round, Hrabik seemed to shake it off. Okay, that was a weird end to the first round. I didn't expect that. Then he landed some pretty heavy shots, wobbled Smith again. So it's like, okay, Hrabik back on track here. Smith did not want to mess around on the feet anymore, quickly dragged Hrabik to the ground and started to smother him. The massive underdog, 9-1 underdog. Smith was landing punch after punch after punch, busted Hrabik open bad, made him bleed all over the canvas. And then, to the shock of everybody, the ref called it off, giving Tim Smith an unbelievable win. I honestly can't remember if it was 8-1 or 9-1. Doesn't matter though. I mean, one of the biggest clearly the biggest underdog on the card that won. And I mean, you never ever see underdogs like this win like that. I mean, and you could even tell why he was the underdog in the first place, because it really did not look even close most of the time. But to come back like that and win like that, I mean, incredible. Oh, it was 9-1. I even actually wrote it down on the bottom here because he's the most valuable fighter, of course. I mean, that's crazy. That is crazy to be that far an underdog, and reasonably so. I mean, he really didn't look that good when he was fighting. To then come back and win like that and get a finish a finish in the second round. Unreal. This is why you watch regional MMA, because that right there is worth the watch. It was crazy. Main event from there was Ty Flores, Graham Park. Ty Flores was actually on the Contender Series. I don't know if it was this year or last year, but I do remember watching him. And then, main event. It was supposed to be a title fight. Sadly, Ty Flores missed weight. So the belt remains with Graham Park no matter what happens. So if win or lose, Graham Park still the champion because Ty Flores missed weight. Simple as that. Sucks, but it happens. Also, then, of course, it was changed from 5 rounds to 3 rounds because it was no longer a title fight. Again, makes sense. It was a shorter fight to end the night, but that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Park put his game plan into action early, pushed Flores into the fence, dragged him down to the canvas, took his back from there, did slip over the top, but, which allowed Flores to take control. And Flores started to land some pretty heavy ground and pound. I mean, it looked like Park was really doing, kind of like, okay, he's the better guy on the ground. But Flores, like I said, the ground and pound really forced Park to get back up to his feet. But it was actually Flores who started to dominate the grappling from there. Threw Park down, then lost. Clearly, I would say lost the first round after had a decent start to the round. Definitely Flores stole it with all that. I would say 1-0 pretty clearly for Flores after the first round. Park was in a rough spot early in the second, pinned on the canvas and getting thrashed by ground and pound. Flores continued that dominance for the entire round. So it's 2 rounds up for Flores. Wasn't really looking all that close anymore at that point. Third round, Flores landed a heavy leg kick right off the bat. The leg kicks get disgusting sometimes. They really do. Park responded nicely, though, looking for some openings, getting Flores along the fence, really trying to get something going. He knew he was probably down. Again, wasn't going to lose his belt, but still, you don't want to lose. He actually did open up Flores pretty bad with a clinch strike, giving him a nasty cut. The doctor was actually brought in because of it, but did let it go on. Flores turned up the heat from there, pushed Park back into the fence, landed some clinch strikes. Park was still in the fight, though, trying to keep the cut flowing. You got to keep the cut going, make it look worse. Then maybe you get a doctor stoppage or something like that. Play the game. With a minute left, Flores had fully regained all his momentum, sadly for Park, dragged Park down, landed some heavy ground and pound. And really, with all that dominance throughout the fight, I gave the pretty clear win to Flores, and the judges also gave him the win on all the cards. So pretty clear win for Ty Flores there. But a couple of rough moments there for sure. And the bonuses, the KO of the night had to be Shannon Clark, because that comeback, oh my God, what a comeback from that. I mean, like I said, I went through it for 10 minutes straight. I mean, crazy fight, crazy win for Shannon Clark. Super impressed by that. I mean, am I going to be picking her in the future? I don't know. There were a lot of gaps there that need to be fixed, but you can't deny that heart, that desire to win. It's hard to see that in anybody. It is hard. It is hard to find people that are like that. So, I mean, just so fiery and intense. I love to see that. To come back and get that win, amazing. Definitely KO bonus for sure. Submission of the night, Cody Reese. I mean, I think that actually might have been the only submission anyway. Yeah. Oh, I could have given... No, that's right. No, never mind. I was flipping between KO of the night and most valuable fighter, because I ended up giving, like I said, Shannon Clark the KO bonus. The other person I was going with, of course, was the other finish, was Tim Smith, because it was so crazy. But I eventually went with Tim Smith being the most valuable fighter because 9-1 underdog, and he did that. I mean, holy shit. Crazy. And then he was actually the former champ. He called for a title shot after that, which is a Shane Campbell. And I'm like, I don't think he's going to win. He's not beating Shane Campbell like that. No way in hell. He's not winning that fight at all. No way. But I respect the fact that he called out for it and that he ended up coming back and winning like that. I mean, it was as a 9-1 underdog. That's crazy. So that was my most valuable fighter. Cody Reese, sub of the night. KO of the night, Shannon Clark. Fight of the night, I mean, had to be Hrabik and Smith, of course. Of course. I mean, that was insane. I couldn't believe what I was watching. I was like, this is crazy. Because I keep thinking, okay, Hrabik is going to get up and easily win this fight with a KO. And then Smith comes out of nowhere and flips the entire thing on its back. And it's like, oh my God. Yeah, crazy fight, crazy night. Another solid show by Unified. Like I said, really the only problem I had was in Unified 48, on the Friday, with those first two fights being so boring. Other than that, though, solid as always. And that is it. That is officially it for 2022. We're done. And I will be back as well. Yeah, I'll be back in January. That would be, the next card is, I believe, the 14th. That's back at the Apex, I'm pretty sure. Oh yeah, it's like it's Nasruddin Imavov and Gastelum. That's the card. Weird main event. I don't know why that's the main event. I mean, for fuck's sake, you've got Shavkat Rakhmonov and Jeff Neal in the co-main. Why is Imavov and Gastelum in the main event? Like, what are we doing here? Why is this the main event? It's just so bizarre. Why? I don't want to watch 5 rounds of Imavov and Gastelum. What? Like, what are we doing here? It's so weird. And then instead, like I said, I mean, I think Shavkat's going to get a pretty quick finish anyway, but still, it's like I would much rather see 5 rounds of that, of Jeff Neal and Shavkat go at it, than Gastelum and Imavov. Talk about irrelevant. Like, Gastelum hasn't been doing anything, and Imavov just beat Buckley, I think. That's not a main event. Like, what do you do? I'm so confused as to why. But anyway, whatever. That's the first event. I believe that's on the 14th, which means that I'll be back on like the 9th or the 10th, whatever that Wednesday is. I will be back on the Wednesday before the first card, whenever that is. So that's a nice 3-week break. Fucking A. Let's do it. So anyway, but thanks for watching. I mean, I don't even know if anybody's even watching these anywhere, but if they are, thanks for watching. I will see you next year, like I said, on that the Wednesday before the first UFC card, whenever that will be. Yeah, thanks to everybody, I guess, all year really for watching. This is my first actual full year, calendar year, January all the way to December. Yeah, it's been fun. Happy holidays, everybody. Oh yeah, I should also say, of course, you got to do the whole spiel. Area 51 has got you covered for all the other sports. I've got all the MMA stuff as well. I post my bonuses, of course. Speaking of the bonuses, I just remembered I will be doing my year-end bonuses over the next week, I guess, obviously before the end of the year. I might even actually do a couple, like one of them, I don't even know. I might even do my Unified and BFL ones in January or something. I'm not really sure. But yeah, I will be doing bonuses, year-end bonuses for BFL, Battlefield Fight League, Unified MMA, and then I will actually be splitting the UFC ones in half, because I will be doing the men's bonuses, the women's bonuses, And I might actually even just do UFC bonuses in general. I'm thinking about it, like I might do, like the best, worst scorecard of the year. I think that's locked up already. I don't think anybody, I think everybody knows which one that's going to be. I'm going to do like that. Maybe the best card of the year, as in like, I'm actually not even sure which one I would choose. I'm thinking maybe UFC Paris was pretty sick. The first UFC London was incredible. That might win. Honestly, there's been a couple of cards the last 2 months that have been outrageously good with how solid they've been top to bottom. Orlando was pretty solid, I got to say. That Orlando card was that was magic. Orlando Magic. Pure Disney magic. Anyway, but yeah, anyway, so I'll be doing that over the next couple weeks, my year-end bonuses for the 3 different promotions that I do talk about. I don't know. Hopefully people like them. Hopefully people will enjoy that on Twitter and Instagram. That is where they are. That is also below. Yeah. But that's it. Yeah, as I was saying though, I hope everybody has a good Hanukkah, Christmas, whatever you got, or nothing. If you don't do anything, just have a nice time. Enjoy. Maybe you got some snow. We've got tons of snow out here. We don't normally have this much snow in Vancouver, but I love the snow. I love it. I love it. And there's like 2 feet of it now. Amazing. But yeah, hopefully everybody's enjoying that. Have some nice family time. Enjoy some time off of work, off of school, whatever you got. And I will be back next year. But it has been a fantastic year. And yeah, I'm excited to come back. Well, not necessarily to talk about a Malvov gas saloon, but the rest of the card, I'm excited to talk about it. And then, my God, we've got UFC Brazil. Brazil, UFC 283. Oh my goodness. That I cannot wait for. I am so excited for that. Skip the other card. Bring Brazil a week early. That's what I'm saying. Bring it now. Early Christmas present. But yeah, anyway, I will see you next year. Thanks everybody again. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.